Specifically with DORE, what I can say is that everybody involved is passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
There are certainly some days which are more challenging than others.
You're listening to the DORE podcast, where we spotlight the people, ideas, and businesses keeping Ottawa running. From contractors to real estate investors, entrepreneurs to industry experts, we dive into real conversations and help grow everybody's pie.
Episode 9, DORE Property Management.
Well, welcome to the DORE podcast, where we be talking about anything related to real estate investing. And today, we have a special guest, Mr. Martin Gauthier from DORE Property Management. Welcome.
Sir. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. So Martin, tell us, what is your role here at DORE Property Management?
Yeah. So I'm what I like to refer to as God.
Yeah.
So
The savior.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So I handle the money.
Yeah.
Right. So that's certainly important for our clients.
The peasants.
The peasants.
Yeah.
The tenants.
Yeah.
So without me,
Nothing works.
nothing happens, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's
Everybody just shut down.
pretty much
And go fuck yourself.
Exactly. Like
Exactly.
service. I mean, it's important to, service our team.
Somewhat.
Yeah, but I mean, they can take 3-4 days off and nobody notices,
5.
or even 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if I take a day off,
Yeah.
nothing works.
No. Half a day.
Half a day.
Yeah,
even.
we're all
yeah,
screwed.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah. When I see you're not on, I say, fuck it, the day's lost.
pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So I'm glad you've noticed, because
He's like, what the fuck is going on here? He's like, how the hell am I going to edit all of this? I was seeing it like,
that was good.
I think we had a good rumbling. I was looking at it like, what the fuck is this shit? How the hell am I gonna put this on YouTube? So, Mike, are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay, we're ready. Take 2?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's why I wanted to make sure that, you can.
Yeah.
and
We're like,
start.
yeah, because sometimes we get on this tangent, we have a hard time getting off of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The countdown?
Yeah, might as well.
Already 3, 2, 1.
Good. So welcome to the DORE podcast. We'll be discussing everything related to real estate investing. So today we've got a special guest, Martin Gauthier from DORE Property Management.
Yes, sir. Hi, Dan.
Martin, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Great to be here.
Can you just tell everybody what your role is with us at DORE Property Management?
Sure thing. So I'm the accounting and finance manager at finance and legal affairs manager at DORE. So I handle with my colleague everything related to accounting, rent roll, disbursements to owners, paying vendors, stuff like that, and also the legal side, which involves notices to the tenants and representing the owners at the board via our great paralegal that we have, and handling discussions and agreements and whatnot that are pertaining to the lease and sometimes the termination of the lease and whatnot.
That's right.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously today we only have time to cover just the macros of what's involved and what you do.
Yep.
But just so we start from the beginning, typically it would start. So if we start a typical month, the first thing usually is the rent roll.
Yep.
And the rent roll meaning that the tenants that owe the rent will go into that process. So how does that look like? How's that process?
Sure
on
thing.
our end?
And certainly in property management, what maybe is a little bit different than other businesses is that it's really a cycle of 1 month, and you do 1 month and then you start over again, and pretty much it repeats every month, right?
Yeah.
So as you say, yes, it starts with the rent roll. So charges to the tenants are entered when the lease begins. The setup is done in our system, so that all the tenants' information, the lease, the rent, and all that's all entered in our system. And at the either at the tail end of the month, or sometimes it's on the first of the month, or perhaps the second if there's a weekend. There's a process to run the rent roll in the system. So that really takes the information that was previously entered, and then it's time to bill the tenants on the first. It bills the tenant, and also what it will do is if the tenants are subscribed to pre-authorized payments, which we highly encourage the tenants to do, then it pulls the funds from their account on the first business day of the month, deposit it to our trust account, and does the posting as though funds have been received, and that's checked off. Some tenants prefer paying by e-transfer. That's fine too. We accept those. So those have to be manually entered. Sometimes they'll even send them before the month end, for the month coming up. So I've got my colleague there that posts that manually and updates the system. And there's a few, but I've got to say now we're down to a small handful that still pay by checks. That is
we're not seeing too many of those.
No, that's more old school. But so those are deposited. We used to have a machine that at the office that we used to scan, just like you see at the bank. Just now with the number of checks that we have, like it's 4 or 5. Just do a mobile deposit. And
we thought our technology, we were cutting edge technology when we put that system in.
I can imagine. That was before my time, actually. So, but I was impressed to see that.
It's like, hey, we got the bank machine at the office. So we always try to stay. And I mean, obviously, you're working hard as we speak, maybe depending on when people see this podcast, but you're hard at work setting us up for even more efficient system when it comes to software. So it'll be nice to be able to present that at a future date. But,
exactly. So I can talk about it a little quickly now. But we're transitioning to Yardi Breeze Premier, which is one of the most popular software for property management, and has some nice benefits as to being able to have tenant portals, owner portals, so each party will be able to go on an app and see their account and see where everything is at in real time, right? So they don't have to wait for the statements to come out at the end of the month.
So it'll be fun once we're able to launch that to everybody. So good stuff. And I know we don't get too many of these, but obviously, for the odd NSF that non-sufficient funds or somebody doesn't pay on the first of the month. So what's the process? I mean, obviously it's legislated, but just maybe explain to everybody how we handle that.
Sounds good. So if it's somebody that was subscribed to pre-authorized payment, unless they've advised us in advance that, hey, this month don't withdraw. So that's one of the things for the rent roll is that each month there are some exceptions, right? So I keep a list of exceptions, and for whatever reason, I can go adjust them manually before sending off the file to the bank. So if they were on pre-authorized payment, a few days after, we'll be notified by the bank. We'll receive a file, and it's going to tell us if there are any NSFs. Those get posted in the system. Obviously, we advise the tenants, usually incurs an NSF fee. And then sort of supplementary to that, anybody that hasn't paid, right? It doesn't need to be an NSF. So anybody that hasn't paid, typically on the third of the month, depending on when the weekend falls, we issue an N4 notices to all the tenants that haven't paid in full. So an N4 notice is really, you can look at it as simply a communication between the landlord and their tenant, right? So they're putting them on notice, hey, you haven't paid your rent. The rent was due on the 1st. And if you have until this date, which is again legislated by the province, the landlords need to give them 14 days plus allowing 5 days because we mail the notices. So on the notice, there'll be a termination date of later in the month, let's say the 23rd, 24th, and it says you need to pay that amount by this date. And if you don't, the day after, the landlord is entitled to apply to the landlord and tenant board to schedule an L1 hearing, an eviction hearing for non-payment of rent. So we issue, a small number of N4s every month, but most of them get resolved, way before or by the termination date. And then, there's no need to apply, or not only there's no need, there's no legal basis to apply. Once they've paid in full, the notice becomes null and void, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's certainly another type of application that can be done, whether payments are made in full or not, but just if they're consistently made late, that's a different application.
Yep.
But in terms of being late on the rent, once it's paid off, and even after you've applied to the board, even after the board has issued an order, the tenants can always cancel either that order or that hearing that's coming up by paying everything in full.
Yeah. So thankfully, I mean, I know you're a landlord yourself personally, and so am I, and been for about 25 years. And I have to say that as much as it's no fun to go through that process, I think you'd agree that it's a needle in a haystack in many cases. It's not something that we go through regularly. And I always tell clients that would get in. I said, if we're not in the business of putting people on the street. So, if we were getting, every second rent was a problem, we had to do this. We wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah,
right? It would make no sense. So
exactly.
It's really an exception to the rule. And generally speaking, I mean, from experience, there's usually a reason that, life happens, something happens, and, we try to be sympathetic to that. But thankfully it's...
And certainly it goes to way before the tenants move in, the leasing process,
right?
To do the proper screening, to make sure that the tenants are capable of paying their rent and other expenses in life.
Right.
But again, like you say, life happens.
That's right.
And I mean, the best applicants can fall on hard times.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of 1 month that this happened, and it's going to take until the 20th and in such a case, we advise the owners. Mm-hmm. But we do still take the steps, certainly the N4.
Yep.
Because to be able to apply to the board, the N4 must have been issued, right?
That's right.
So you can't wait 2 months, let's say, or whatever, and then say, well, it's been 2 months, I'm going to apply to the board. No, if you haven't sent the N4,
that's right.
That needs to go
through the process.
That needs to be done first, right?
Yeah.
And so when we reach the termination date later in the month, that's really when, if the tenants haven't paid, and obviously we've been in communication with the tenant and the owner, depending on what the situation is or what information the tenant has provided, or that's when we'll go to the owner and say, okay, well, we haven't received the funds. We can certainly apply to the board, as of, let's say, today, and then it's up to the owners to decide if they wish to proceed.
That's right.
In most cases, certainly if there's been, let's say, no communication from the tenant, or they say, hey, I have no idea when I can pay or whatever, then we will generally recommend apply to the board, sort of an insurance policy, right? We can't predict when tenants will follow through on what they say or what they don't say. So typically we'll recommend that, yes, you might as well apply to the board. There are some costs involved, but they're rather minimal compared to the lost income if you don't apply and you wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then that accumulates and there's no rent, right?
Selling a commercial property? At DORE, we know how to attract the right buyers, price strategically, and help you get over the finish line and close. Let us market your asset the right way and help you get the returns you deserve. Visit us at doremultiresidential.com.
But certainly not always. So certainly if a tenant comes to us and says, hey, this is what's happening, I'm getting paid on such and such a date, well, in that case, we'll likely recommend to the owner, well, how about we wait until this date, see if the payment comes through, and it'll save you the application costs and whatnot. If it doesn't follow through on what they say, then we can revisit and apply.
Because I mean, obviously, we're not hiding behind the fact that we're trying to continue the tenancy as well. I mean, if the occupancy continues with exchange of rent, then typically that's the deal, and that's what we're trying to have continue. So
for sure,
because obviously it's thankfully there's not too many of them, but I mean the ones that go through it, it's never fun. So,
for sure.
So let's switch gears a bit to obviously when we manage properties, there's maintenance and repairs that are required. So on a monthly basis, we generally report to owners on a monthly basis. So there'll be some whether it's inspections of smoke alarms or repairs or a leak or something to that effect. So just give us maybe a quick synopsis of how that works. Obviously, I mean, the service department will dispatch those things out, but how does accounting handle those vendor remittances?
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
And I'll talk a bit. Certainly, I mean, service will certainly discuss their end of the deal, but I want to include that.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah, exactly. It ties in, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So basically, when a service request comes in, the service team will dispatch it, but obviously they're in communication with the owner, right? So they'll say, hey, the tenant has reached out and has reported this issue. We've dispatched such and such, and away we go. And then when the work is completed, or along the way, if it's something that's a little bit more involved, they keep the owners informed what's going on and all that. But certainly, once the work is completed, there's a resolution. They let the owner know, hey, this is complete. The washer, they needed to change a belt and whatnot. Simply because so that when the expense shows up on their income statement, it shouldn't come as a surprise, right?
Exactly.
So they've been in communication. They know this is coming. So once we receive the bills from the vendor, we'll input it in our system, pay the vendor. So typically the way it works is that, and I think we'll probably get into it a little bit later, but the owners are typically paid on the 15th. So we pay the vendors, generally around the 10th. So every 10th of the month we pay the vendors, and sometimes we pay them throughout the month too. And then, so that's sort of a cutoff date. And then all those expenses will appear on the owner's statement coming up with a little two-liner of what was done. Certainly, I mean, we don't want statements that are 4 or 5 pages. So it's more just quick recap of what was done. But again, they would have had ample communication.
Yeah, so it's not as much a surprise.
Exactly.
And obviously, we maybe you can explain also a bit of how we work with thresholds in terms of maximums. Sure. So then that way, it's I know it's in our PMA, our property management agreement, but it hits accounting very specifically, obviously.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the typically a service will dispatch and authorize vendors to proceed with any work that is below the threshold of $500. And that's meant to make sure that we're not handicapped when, addressing small items that can be fixed on the spot, and not having to, have the vendor go out, make an assessment, report back to service report back to the owner, maybe taking a day to respond for whatever reason. And obviously, by that time, the vendor has left and having to return. So it's a matter of efficiency, both for us
and it's cost savings for the owner as well,
cost
right?
savings for the owner, absolutely. Because so that's the threshold that we've put. So if the vendor goes on site and assesses that that's it's something that is a little bit more involved. So all vendors are advised. At every dispatch, I mean, we have our roster of regular vendors, and I mean, they've come to know. But just as a habit, every time we dispatch, there's always that line, right? Maximum $500.
That's right.
Anything over, you need to provide us a quote. So they'll quote the work, send it to service. Service sends it to the owner for approval, and then once it's approved, that sort of note is entered in the system. And approved by owner, and away we go. There's another threshold, and it varies. I won't mention necessarily the amount, but it's more internal. Whereas we'll require prepayment from the owner. And that's because, I mean, if you're getting into thousands of dollars, typically the way that we work is that any expenses is deducted from that month's rental income. That's right. But if you have a large expense that month, well, chances are that the rental income won't cover everything.
Right.
And we don't want to be in a situation where, like I mentioned, we pay the vendors on the 10th, and there's not enough funds. And then we're like, we need to go to the owners for funds. Right. And then the vendor is waiting. Well, the deal is I get paid on the 10th. I did the work and all that.
That's right.
So on larger, project quotes, we'll ask for a prepayment from the owner.
Yep.
And typically it depends on what time of the month that the work is quoted. If we've already dispersed that month's income or not, So
Yep.
the service team, when that threshold is reached, they'll reach out to accounting,
Right.
and then we'll check where the account is with the owners, and then we'll proceed accordingly. And then we get involved, right? We reply to the owner, hey, we need this deposit.
Yep.
We post a prepayment charge in the books, and away we go. And that way it's smooth. There's no waiting. There's no.
And I think from that standpoint, to piggyback on that comment, I think one of the biggest advantages that the way we run our system as well is that for landlords, any cash flow we have for their property is always remitted every week, every month.
That's right.
So we don't keep a slush fund of their cash in order to offset these expenses. Hence the reason why if we need it, we reach out, because we essentially don't keep any other funds. So
That's right.
if you're an owner, we manage on your behalf. We flush out all of the net cash flow every month.
Yep.
And then that way, the owners get their funds right away. So I think from that standpoint, I'm a landlord too, and I can say that I like that aspect too, because obviously there's no reason to leave funds in somebody else's account if it doesn't need to be. So
Yeah, exactly.
and as far as I know, we've always operated that way, and it's worked very well for us.
Yep.
So and I think landlords like that. So I want to hit a bit on probably one of the most controversial things when it comes to service and accounting with respect to what say a landlord would consider to be normal wear and tear, and what a tenant would consider to be normal wear and tear,
Yep.
and what a third-party adjudicator at the landlord-tenant board would consider to be normal wear and tear. So I don't know that there's a better person in our team to explain, the challenges that come with explaining to all parties how that expectation is not the same for everybody.
For sure.
So perhaps you just look at different angles and just give some of the challenges that comes with that, and how sometimes you're the one that's communicating, or we're the ones that are communicating a certain thing, and we look like we're the bad guys, but just to give perspective on people listening.
For sure. And I can understand the confusion or the misunderstandings or whatnot, because wear and tear, they're words that we'll use every day,
Right.
and that to most people is just a common sense phrase that what that means. It means when
I wasn't abusive. Yeah.
I wasn't abusive.
Yep.
It was used in a normal way. It's just normal wear and tear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of one definition, but it's not necessarily the landlord and tenants board definition, right?
Yep.
So not typically. So the law says, the RTA, the Residential Tenancies Act, say landlords are responsible for all repairs and maintenance. Right. So that technically, if that was it, you'd say, anything that the tenant damages or whatever, I'm responsible as a landlord. Mm-hmm. Not quite. There is a provision that says, tenants can be held responsible if they've been abusive or willful neglect. Mm-hmm. So whenever there's a situation where, there's damages or excessive wear and tear or whatever, there's always an assessment to be made as to, what is the common procedure of the board, their past rulings, how would the board consider it, mm-hmm. right? So it's not necessarily, what I, as the owner's representative, what I think,
right,
or what the tenant thinks, or whatnot, right? It's
or the landlord thinks,
or even the owner themselves. That's right.
Yeah,
exactly. So we definitely often have to, explain to the owners who they see. We share the pictures, we share the videos, and sometimes when I handed the keys, everything was nice, everything was true, mm-hmm. except that. Certainly, so some minor damage and all that are to be expected, and are unfortunately cannot be put on the tenant. Certainly in a legal matter. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't go to the tenants and say, hey, in our minds, in our back of my mind, we're like, okay, perhaps this is not hasn't reached the threshold at the landlord and tenant board, but
But reasonable people would sometimes...
reasonable people would say, yeah, maybe my dog chewed that corner of the stairs, and I think I should be responsible for it.
Yep.
So there can certainly be some discussion with that, and you'd be surprised that sometimes tenants they simply own up to it and say, yeah, I'm willing to pay for that. I did the damage, and so that's certainly the best way. Because certainly going to the board is certainly a challenge. And the other thing to mention is that even in cases of clear abuse, right, is that everything in a house has a life expectancy.
Investing in Ottawa real estate? DORE Property Management has 20 plus years of proven results. Call 613-227-0000 or visit dorerentals.com.
I mean, if you're talking carpets, for example, the written guideline is like 10 years. But I've heard examples.
I've been privy to it.
Yourself, right?
Yep.
That 4 or 5 year old carpet, trashed, and the member of the board said, "Well, it's a rental.
That's right.
It's simply a write off for you."
It's very frustrating, but
right. So, but even if you had let's say more reasonable that goes really by the book. I mean, if your carpets are 10 years old, that certainly means there's no chance.
There's no recourse.
There's absolutely no recourse, even if the carpets are shot. Right. So,
and I think I think we can agree also that if we can't reason with it, because these generally these no wear and tear things, a lot of things those happen on move out of a tenant. If you can reason with the tenant, that's the best thing. But then again, if you can't, it becomes more of a what do you think your chances of actually getting remedy on this, and how much is it going to cost to do that? Because as there's costs involved in a landlord pursuing this, and no guarantees that you'll get anything. So sometimes it becomes are you really trying to capture cost, and what are the chances of doing that, or you're doing it just for the purposes of proving a point?
Exactly,
right?
And certainly if going to the board, you could be assured that you'll win. You'll get this amount. Well, obviously the decision would be easy, right? It would be, okay, I'm going to spend so much, but I'm going to get so much.
That's right.
The problem is obtaining that favorable judgment.
And then collecting it.
That's the thing too, because even if you get a judgment against a tenant, hey, the board is certified. It's it's a legal paper. Okay, well, go collect. So
that's right.
Typically, if the tenants still don't abide by the order, is then sent to a collection agency. But obviously, if the tenants are heavily indebted, it's just one more of their debt that simply won't get collected on, or maybe pennies on the dollar or whatnot.
If any.
And
I think if we go, obviously this normal wear and tear aspect, like we were saying, is usually this is an issue you deal on move out in many cases, because that's where we do a more stringent inspection of the property. Notwithstanding the fact that we're trying to bring it into a condition to entice a new tenant to come in and have a favorable move in. Right. I know this is a common theme around the team, and this is something I've always been a big fan of saying. You try to make sure that the move in is a positive one, because typically if it's a positive one, then everything's smoother. So in your opinion, obviously you see a lot of these where, if they're smooth, you don't get involved, but if they're not, and sometimes you're involved, you're, making, judgment calls, making suggestions and so on. So in your experience, how important is it for a landlord to make sure that it's a positive experience for a new tenant moving in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important, simply because, tenants and everybody else, they're human, right? So you get into a new property, it's, their new home, right? So they have high expectations, they're excited and all that. And let's say they get to a property and it's like, it doesn't show well, it hasn't been cleaned before they move in. It's like, okay, the landlord doesn't care, right? And then it continues where they have that impression, and subconsciously maybe they'll be saying, well, if the landlord doesn't care about, my home, why should I care?
And that's what
right?
that's what we don't want. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's what we don't want.
So because we have many great tenants that go above and beyond what they legally have to, and we really appreciate that. But likely because they've had a good experience so far with the landlord at the beginning, and throughout their tenancy, they've made a couple of service requests, and we answer promptly and all that.
That's right.
So that goes a long way in establishing a good relationship. For everybody involved.
Yeah, and we've set up a system also where we solicit feedback after every move-in, and obviously it gives us a really good bird's eye view on perspective, so allows any new resident coming into the property to tell us exactly what their experience is. And we're pretty proud to see the amount of positive that we do. I mean, obviously, sometimes there's issues, sometimes it's property, sometimes there's challenges. We all understand that. But I think as a team, I think we do very, very well. Notwithstanding the fact that sometimes it's challenging to try to please everybody in the mix. So that's good. You and I can go on and on. We're both passionate about this.
Is there a time limit?
No, exactly. Mike, can we continue? No. So anyways, just to close things off, I mean, we just went through the macros. Any parting words, anything maybe that I didn't really bring to the table today, but on what we're doing? Or?
Yeah, well, certainly, specifically with DORE, what I can say is that everybody involved is passionate about what they do. There are certainly some days which are more challenging than others. Right. But we lift up our pants and
we got a good core people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that I think translate in both a relationship with the owners, which are ultimately our client, and the tenants, which we view as clients too, right? So I mean, they're the ones that are paying the rent, and we're collecting that and transferring, and we want to make sure that they're well deserved too. Just having a great team of people, and always looking to improve, and not just this is how we do it, and we've been doing it like this for years, and that's good enough, right?
That I love that about us. Yes. Right? Like the whole team thinks like that. Even though we've always done it this way, doesn't mean we need to continue doing it this way. So that's a good point, actually.
So
thank you for bringing that up.
No problem.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
And it's it's something that I love myself, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, just doing a job like the same every day and all that, and not having any challenges or whatever. It's after a time it wouldn't be as fun, but
no, of course not. No.
Yeah, but
we got a lot of challenges in the pipeline.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some good things coming up, and I mean, that's we're here at the service of the landlords, the tenants, and I mean even our vendors. Yep. And we try to do our best to make them happy. Yep. We don't always succeed. Nope. Sometimes we can. Mess up.
That's right. We're human.
We're human. Something slips through the crack or whatever. But make us aware of it, and we'll certainly do our best to correct it and make sure that everybody is well treated and on a positive note.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Martin. Thank you for everything you do for us. All right. I mean, you play a big role, and I know I tell you from time to time, but. Now we have it on recorded.
It's going to be there forever.
Now I'm going to regret it. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the DORE Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or investor focused on real estate in Ottawa, we want to hear from you. Apply to be a guest and check out our video content anytime on YouTube.